Hello, everyone. This is Bridgit Danner from Hormone Detox Shop, and I'm here with Marnie Reasor, who is a homeopath practitioner out of Nashville, Tennessee. I just found out. Welcome, Marnie.
Thank you. It's so good to be with you today, Bridgit.
It's really good to get to know you and get to know like a little different aspect of what we can do to address our health as women. We're going to focus on a few particular specialties of yours. But anybody listening, I hope you become intrigued by homeopathy. There's some questions I have for Marnie that I, I want answered. And yeah, I hope that you can use it to apply to your own case, whatever that may be. So Marnie, maybe just get us started with like a little bit about how you became a homeopath practitioner and what is homeopathy. People have probably heard of it, but maybe don't fully understand it.
Sure. And thank you for having me on today. I'm a big fan of yours, and I love the summits you've put on, especially all the work you're doing with mold. So
Ah.
that's so helpful. I'm giving your links to a lot of people
Oh,
because
I know. Mold is coming up, isn't it?
it's everywhere. Just in the past 2 years, so many of my clients are having mold issues. And
I know it does seem worse. I think it's a kind of a combination of there's a lot of things, but I think lately worse is like the climate change aspect and more storms and wetness. I think EMF is a factor. And then for a while now, us building our houses in new ways has been a factor as well. So I do think it's coming up. So thank you for spreading the word. We're not going to talk a ton about mold today, but
different topic, everyone's favorite topic, fibroids and endometriosis. That's what we're going to do today.
we're going to talk about that. I convinced you to talk about Epstein-Barr virus as well. So a
Yeah.
few little specialties, but again, I hope that people can kind of take this information and say, maybe this is something for me to check out. So what is homeopathy and how'd you get into it?
Yes. So when I was 24, I found out I was like 24. I found out I had Epstein-Barr, and I had been really sick and run down and tired. And finally I got a blood test, and sure enough, it was Epstein-Barr. And when I heard that, I was like, oh no, I was horrified because there'd been a girl in my high school who'd had it for like 8 years, and she still had it. And she was just bedridden all those years. I was like, this is terrible. So I was living in New York City at the time, and I started trying like vitamins. I used to see Dr. Atkins. He was my doctor in New York. So
Oh, really? From the Atkins diet?
yes, it was before the Atkins diet was big. So I saw him. He was great functional medicine doctor, one of the originals. I had my food allergies tested, checked on my thyroid, took handfuls of supplements, which were really good supplements, good quality. I started getting vitamin IVs 2 to 3 times a week, glutathione IVs, hydrogen peroxide IVs, and things would work for a
That's
while.
very progressive.
It was so progressive. This
Yeah.
was in 97,
Okay.
1897. So lots of stuff going on in New York, and changed my diet, ate really clean, got rid of gluten and dairy and sugar and Diet Coke and all these things. And I felt a little better, but I could not kick it. And I had it for 2 years. And eventually I went to see a classical homeopath. And so he talked to me for 2 hours. He asked me all these unusual questions. And then he said, okay, I have a remedy for you. And I was like, all right. And he gave me these 2 little pellets. He's like, all right, here you go. I'll see you in 6 weeks. I was like, what? I'm used to doing all this stuff in these IVs and
Right.
everything. And so literally, I don't know if I'm sure you've seen these little pellets, these homeopathic remedies. So he gave me these 2 little pellets and said, I'll see you in 6 weeks. He lived in London. He said, I'll be back in 6 weeks for your follow-up. It's great. And I was like, oh no, this is not going to work. So I took the pellets. But sure enough, 3 weeks later, I was energetic. I was out of bed. I was going to like Taibo classes in the morning. I was super excited. That was, when that was going on. Got my energy back. And over time, my migraines, chronic migraines went away, bladder infections, all this anxiety I had, all these places where I'd been really stuck, they started getting better. And I was repeating the remedy about once a month, just 2 pellets about once a month. And over time, those things got better. And so I started to go to homeopathy school for 4 years. Then I worked in a clinic.
Wow.
So for 4 years. So basically what happened was, I'd taken all these supplements. They were great. I was taking antiviral herbs. I was taking, Myers cocktail, IV drips. immune boosting supplements. I was trying all sorts of things, but it just wasn't getting my immune system back in order the way it should be. And so what the remedy did was it was like a reset button. It brought my body into balance. It made my body so healthy the virus couldn't live there.
Mm.
So it was just this complete change. And then my mental outlook changed, which I want to make the point, it's not because I wasn't sleeping all the time. It was like this heaviness of my mind lifted. And homeopathy has this profound emotional healing aspect. And so my homeopath gave me a remedy called Staphysagraria, which is a plant, it's delphinium. And that it had, all my I had all my different symptoms, right? It matched those symptoms and it just covered my whole picture of everything about me, physical, mental, emotional. So Staphysagraria, they're very sweet, but they can be like, have a lot of suppressed anger. So it had happened. I've been work situation where my boss was yelling at me all the time. And I was like frustrated. I couldn't say anything. And basically I just stuffed my feelings. And then that's when I got Epstein-Barr. I mean, I picked it up, it's all around, but I became susceptible to it. And then the remedy came up and I started having like stronger boundaries, more clarity about what I wanted, what I didn't want. I was speaking my emotions more. So notice I didn't take the Epstein-Barr nosode. I didn't take a remedy made from Epstein-Barr. So I got a classical homeopathy, what's called a constitutional remedy, right? So that's a remedy that covers all the symptoms. And so I've had a lot of health problems. I've had a lot of estrogen dominance. I've had all sorts of things and a lot of health problems, but homeopathy's helped me tremendously through this time. And I know a lot of women are suffering and I want to help them and just bring knowledge about homeopathy to women, who have problems. It's just an amazing thing. So you were asking about like, what is homeopathy?
Yeah. Tell us exactly how these magical little pellets are made, how they're invented, how they work.
Yeah, it's just an amazing thing that one thing could make such a profound change. So there are basically three types of homeopathy. There's classical homeopathy where you get a constitutional remedy. So that's what I took, where I took one remedy, a homeopath chose it, it hit all areas of my life like a reset button. There's acute remedies. So I'm sure you've seen those things at Whole Foods or health food stores filled with homeopathic remedies, and it's very confusing. But if you had like an acute ear infection or a flu that came on or a cough, you could choose one of those, and there are very specific symptoms for each remedy. So that would just kind of help you get through an acute. Those are more low potency. And then there are combination remedies you might have seen around, and sometimes those work. They're like the top 15 remedies for any condition. So like, let's say you all of a sudden had sinus pressure and headache, like, oh my gosh, and you've never had that before. You could go to health food store and pick up, Boiron has something called Sinusalia. So it has 15 different.
I've totally used that one. That one totally works.
Yeah. Okay, so one of those remedies is a good sinus remedy for you, right?
Yeah, I kind of figure that's how they work. They're just like, well, yeah, these are the most common and you're going to get the 14 of them won't hit you. But yeah, I used to get a lot more, probably because of mold in my history, but I would get these sinus issues. And, when you're desperate, you'll go try anything at the grocery store. And that was one I really liked and I would recommend to clients. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. And they work for some people. The first homeopathic remedy I ever took was is called BioAllers tree pollen, and I'd had a lot of allergies, and my eyes were running and watering. I'd never had allergies before, and I took a drop, and it like cleared up within 30 seconds. I was like, oh my gosh, and that was a combination remedy. And then I guess about a year later, I saw a homeopath, and I got like the classical homeopathy. But yeah, it's kind of like a shotgun approach. You hope it's going to work. Sometimes it works. It's a good try. It won't go as deep, like it won't change like if you have a bunch of other symptoms, but it'll give you some alleviation. So
yeah, another one I've seen, I don't know if you can get this one over the counter, but when my son was little, he had like the ear infection.
Yes.
And he was like clinging to me, and I brought him to the naturopathic school, and they're like, they're like, this is, you probably know which one it is. Maybe, I don't know. They're like, this is this one. And they're like, okay, I go to the pharmacy. Like half an hour later, he's like cured. Like there's
Right?
nothing going on. He's just back to normal. Like I couldn't believe it. So, but I do think, yeah, there for the lay person, it's harder. So you have all this special training to really be able to pick it. But yeah, sometimes we get lucky over the counter too when we get
Oh,
one.
yeah, and that's where people get, convert like, wow, this worked, but I need like more expertise for chronic conditions. That's awesome, and
Okay.
sometimes it just works. And little kids, they respond really quickly because their immune systems are young. Yeah, you can have a shift in emotions, symptoms, all of that.
Okay. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
What else was I going to ask you? So who invented homeopathy?
There was a physician in Germany in the late 1790s named Samuel Hahnemann, and he was totally fed up with the medical system. He was a doctor, and he decided to just translate medical text. And so he discovered all sorts of interesting things in making these medical translations. And he developed the system of medicine that stimulates the body to heal itself. So I'll go a little bit more into how that works. So he's the founder of it. And basically, in classical homeopathy, just one remedy is used to address all the symptoms. So, like, let's say a woman has panic attacks, migraines, frequent bladder infections, and menstrual cramps. You would just take one homeopathic remedy to address everything. So she wouldn't take like valerian for the anxiety and feverfew for migraines and cranberry for bladder and cramp bark for cramps. She would just take one homeopathic remedy that's going to fit all of that.
Gotcha.
So that's one really cool thing. Now I will say I still use supplements, of course. I want the remedies to do most of the work, but for things like vitamin D, omega-3 oils, probiotics, enzymes, like a remedy is just not going to do that. So that's where I like to take some methylated B vitamins. There's
Yeah.
no quick fix on that. We need those. I take those.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
remedies will shift things dramatically emotionally, but I still need my methylated Bs. So I want the remedy to do as much as possible and then let the supplements just kind of nourish the body. One thing that's interesting about homeopathy is it's used all around the world. 200 million people use homeopathy around the world. 100 million use it only for their health care. Like that's it. In India,
Wow.
like or around the world, but a lot in India, 100 million people just use homeopathy, no medications. So
Wow.
it's just not widely used in the US. There are homeopathy medical schools and homeopathy hospitals all around the world. Homeopathy is taught in European medical schools. 95% of French doctors integrate homeopathy into their care, and the French medical system is really good. So it lost favor in the US in the early 1900s. There were in the late 1800s, there were 22 homeopathic medical colleges and more than 100 homeopathic hospitals. Like in the 1880s, our population
Not
was
that long
much
ago.
smaller.
Well, kind of long time ago, but
How long? Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
not that long, but enough that it's changed dramatically. So herbalism and homeopathy went out of favor for more medications. So
It wasn't just out of favor from when I heard. It was also just like the AMA and the FDA. I think a lot of AMA, like as they discovered surgery and antibiotics, they really discredited these
yeah,
organizations, right? It was like pretty.
that's right. Yeah, I didn't want to get into the whole behind
We
it.
can get into it.
We could get into it. It's very sad because it flourished in other places around the world. And yeah, the AMA and the pharmaceutical companies got together and they made a way of ranking medical schools. And the schools that didn't use pharmaceuticals got low ranks. The ones that did use the medications got high ranks. And so the medical schools were closed and then it just stopped. They closed down the hospitals and things like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think it's good context because we might think, oh, homeopathy, like who's ever heard of that? That's crazy. But it's like, no, we were using it right here in the USA until there was this wave of like, we have to modernize and use pharmaceuticals and all this stuff. So I think it's, it's good to have that perspective. And I mean, yeah, I think until you experience it, it can be hard to understand it, but some of the experiences can be really profound. And I really doubt that there's many side effects either, right?
no side effects at all.
Okay.
I
At
mean,
all.
and it
Okay.
works with most medications. Absolutely. No problems with medications, no side effects. The main way it's different than conventional medicine is in, kind of like what we do, Western medication is they suppress the symptoms, right? So you have a symptom, to manage it, you suppress it, you get rid of it, and they consider that a success, right? You want to get relief from the symptoms, manage the symptoms. So antibiotics, the opposites are given: antibiotics, antidepressants, antihistamines, whatever, just to squash it. But we want to understand, like, what's underneath this. Why is this person getting these symptoms in the first place? And also, like, one medication is given for one part, like one thing for headaches, one for bladder infections. Right? So it's just a different way of seeing things. So in homeopathy, we want the body's own natural ability to stimulate itself, to heal itself, get rid of the symptoms on its own, like just get that force of nature moving. We call it the vital force.
I like it. I like it. I feel like you have a lot of vital force, Marnie.
Well, that's good, because I did it for many years.
Yeah. And I think it is, I've been learning and looking into more and more. I mean, there is stuff like EMF and GMO food and all that stuff, but that's happening. But there's also like these more subtle things like being anxious, or you said like, oh, it's suppressed anger. And like, I think especially as women, we have a lot going on under the lid. And like, if it's just like stagnating or whatever, it is going to affect our health. Sometimes we just aren't even very aware of it, or we don't know how to shift it. So something I've been looking at a lot more for myself and for autoimmune cases, and just, complex. A lot of people come to us with these complex cases, and, they've tried so many supplements, they've tried so many things like you were in the beginning, and you just sometimes feel like, something else is missing. I'm not trained like you are, but I'll often say, okay, well, what are you doing for your mental health? Like, who are you seeing? Like, what practices are you doing? To at least like open up that conversation for them. And now they have this resource too with you that's, we can keep in touch, because you're my only homeopath friend right now. So I refer to you. You have had some big success stories with fibroids and endometriosis. I think that's very exciting. I would love to hear more about it.
Yes, definitely. Because that's like the majority right now of what I do, because I love helping people with fibroids and endometriosis, because it's very complicated in conventional medicine, but in homeopathy, we get really good results. So one thing I'll tell you about how homeopathy works before we move to that, so you understand.
Okay, sure.
Homeopathy works is we're based on the law of similars, like cures like is what it's called. Okay. So basically, we match the symptoms or sensations that a person has in their body with sensations that the substance in nature can create or cause, right? So I'll give an example. Like if you're chopping a red onion, your eyes might start watering, your nose is running, it might start burning. You could use the remedy Allium cepa that's made from red onion to give to someone who has a cold or hay fever or something. So if this person has hay fever, their eyes are running, they've got burning nasal discharge, they're feeling awful, just from the pollen outside, right? You'd give Allium cepa if those symptoms match, and then that could reverse their hay fever or their cold, right?
Okay.
So it's an interesting, so we match the symptoms. So whatever the substance is that we use, it's going to match the symptoms that the person's experiencing. So there are like 4,000 different remedies, right? It's individualized. We want to match that one remedy for each person, so that that will flip the switch for them. So notice I didn't give like tree pollen or elm pollen or something to this person with hay fever. It would be like Allium cepa, right? Because, well, I'll explain. Isopathy is one thing that people get a lot of times mixed up with homeopathy. So homeopathy is cures like something similar, the onion helping with hay fever. Isopathy would be like, let's say you have allergies and you take a combination remedies of elm and ash and maple pollen and tree pollen and stuff. It's like the combination remedy I took. It'll desensitize you. It'll alleviate the symptoms, but it won't get to the root cause of like, why is your body reacting to pollen?
Right.
Okay. Like, why do you have this cold or whatever? So that's isopathy. That's a lot of the time when I see people who say they're doing homeopathy, they'll use isopathy, meaning like if you have Epstein-Barr virus, you give Epstein-Barr nosode. But that doesn't really get to the root of it. It's not going to change dramatically the person's immune system. So like cures like, it's individualized for each person. So I could have 50 people come in with migraines, right? And I could give 50 different remedies because they'd each have a different way of experiencing their migraines. And the way I learn about the remedies is I talk to people for like 2 hours. I ask them about how they experience life. They could be 50 people in the same situation and react completely differently and have different symptoms or see it or feel this way. One person could be really mad, or one could be really upset and sad about a situation. So we're always just looking for the nuances of how they
present. Do you ever like just have a really hard time picking? We're
Yes.
like, yes, I bet. I mean, I want to hear that you don't, but I bet it is hard.
It happens. I mean, I'll meet with somebody, right? And I may spend 2, 3, 4, 5 hours researching a remedy. But when you get that remedy right, it's so beautiful because everything falls into place and things change. And sometimes, I've been practicing 18 years. So sometimes I'll take a case, I'm like, oh, this is blah, blah, blah. I know what that is, and I can choose it pretty easily. Yeah, it's hard.
But those others, so if it's hard, you just look at all the textbooks until you get some more clues to like to put you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm listening to how they talk during this session, and then I'm kind of categorizing it, and then I'll start researching the remedies. And sometimes I get stuck, but I figure it out and that sort of thing. So yeah, it can be very easy. It can be very hard.
Okay.
I remember in school we'd have these cases, and seriously, I'd spend like 10, 12 hours on the cases.
Oh my
Thinking
gosh.
about repertorizing and then having to write it up and explain it all. I was like, oh, am I ever going to be able to be a homeopath? Like, I can never make a living if I'm spending like 10 hours.
No, that's really funny.
So I started practicing, and when I was like 31, I started seeing clients and specialized in menopause, which is kind of an unusual thing to do at that age. But I had this huge passion for menopause because it's a time when a woman changes so much. And I know that homeopathy can help the hormones dramatically and kind of all the emotional changes and things she's going through. So around that time, I was getting clients with like fibroids and endometriosis, and I'd had a lot of problems with my own hormones, estrogen dominance, painful periods, that sort of thing. And I just have a lot of compassion for people who are experiencing these things, because it's really hard on your life if your hormones are up and down, or you're not feeling well, or you're moody or whatever. So some clients got better with the fibroids and endometriosis, and some didn't. And I couldn't figure out exactly what was going on, because I was giving them a good constitutional remedy. Their allergies went away. They were having better boundaries. They were a lot happier. All these other things got better, but their fibroids were still there, or they're still suffering with the pain of endometriosis. So at a certain point, I took a seminar with one of my mentors, Karen, and she had had the same experience, and where the constitutional remedy worked really well, but fibroids weren't getting better. Endometriosis was not getting better. So she developed a method of using remedies in water that you repeat during, a period of like 3 to 6 weeks to help break down these fibroids or the endometrial tissue. And she started having results. So she started experimenting with all these different methods and remedies and ways of doing it, and matching just the menstrual. So it's very targeted on the menstrual symptoms. So you'd have your constitutional working like a big beam, and then like a laser beam focused on the period symptoms. So she developed this, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's fascinating. So I started doing that, working with that, and it was really like, this is incredible. This is working real well. I can give them their constitutional, and then we'll do these other protocols on the side with them. And then I got more and more success with it. So I'd say fibroids, they reduce in size based on ultrasounds, or they disappear or reduce in size. It takes like 7 to 10 months for the fibroids. But the endometriosis, it was more like pain reduction in 3 months. It depended, sometimes you don't know if the endometriosis is gone because you have to do surgery to look at it, but the symptoms were so much better. And And then I also would use homeopathic remedies to break down scar tissue. So the endometrial tissue and the scar tissue after surgeries. So within like 1 to 2 cycles, women were having just relief, profound pain relief with that, which is really cool.
Yeah.
They suffered so much. And usually they go to the doctor and it's like, oh, here, take the pill, or, we're going to do surgery. That's your only option. And I'm like, no, homeopathy can do so much. A lot of doctors just don't know about it. And, sometimes the constitutional remedy doesn't cover everything. So we want to break down whatever's going on, the fibroids, the endometrial tissue, and also get to the root of it. Like, why is the body making these things? Why is it doing this in the first place? And then we also want to prevent any like scar tissue from growing or anything growing back after surgery. Because, people will have surgery and then the fibroids just grow back, and it's so sad. And then the doctor says, well, no, you need a hysterectomy, and some people, that's what they need to do. But almost everyone I've worked with, except one woman, we've avoided surgery and hysterectomies. And this woman actually she got a lot of pain reduction, but she had to have surgery, and she had 3 surgeons, a bowel surgeon, a bladder surgeon, and her gynecologist, because they were all working in there to undo the scar tissue from all these organs. Like, her case was so severe.
So severe, yeah.
For like 30 years. And we got her pain relief, but it didn't undo everything. And that's the one case I had that didn't really, make a big difference. But that was, pretty deep pathology at that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to share with the links for this. I did a podcast a long time ago with a great doctor who does some different approaches for fibroids. My friend and colleague in New Zealand does a lot of work with endometriosis. So since we're having those conversations, yeah, like you talked about too, it's still good to like understand the whole picture and think about nutrition and all that stuff. So I might connect you with her, because she might.
I would love that.
Yeah, these are such complex endo. I really especially have like such a heart for. Like, it's so sad, and often happens so young when you want to conceive, and it's just it's a hard diagnosis. So it's so amazing that you're finding the success, and like you and your colleague were kind of experimenting and getting out of the box. Like, that's just so amazing.
Yeah, and a lot of women are just misdiagnosed, right? They get an IC diagnosis, or they don't actually get the endometriosis diagnosis. It's just improperly diagnosed a lot. So a lot of people are suffering, and then they're given the pill and then just given more estrogen, basically.
Yeah, I think that was our last recording with Dr. Jolene, right?
So good. I just got her book.
Oh my gosh, we were just rambling on that podcast, but the book is very clear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was very chatty on that podcast or that recording. But yeah, the book is great because, yeah, it's true. We often got on birth control for many years for things that we don't understand in our bodies. And I think there's an energetic component of like sadness with that too, because you're a woman and you want to like feel good in your body, and you're like having to medicate and suppress, and it's something that doesn't feel right when you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know there are a lot of women who prefer not to take medication, but they're in so much pain that they need to manage the symptoms. I get that. There were times when I needed medication, and
yeah, you're gonna at the moment have to do. I mean, when I was going through the throes of mold, like I was on like 4 different antibiotics that year. Like, I had never been for 20 years on antibiotics, but sometimes you just need it.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, you're just so weakened. So we have about 5 more minutes. Maybe we can talk about some resources that you have for us. You've got a couple. One is, let me go see what it's called. It's like a Hormone Hacks.
I have the Hormone Hacks. So with my own hormones and helping women with their hormones, I've developed a couple of hacks that help. So I integrate these into my life. And these are helpful things I'd love to share. So there's a link where you can click on and get the download. And then the other thing is, for your listeners and your viewers, I'm happy to offer a 45-minute health consult about homeopathy. So if someone's interested in homeopathy, or you have questions about homeopathy, or if it can help, you're curious about if it can help your condition, I've opened up 10 spots in my calendar next week where you can have that session for $57. It's usually $97 on my website, but for your viewers, we can do it for
Nice.
$57. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm just putting those links in right now. So the
Mhm.
Hormone Hacks is a little free ebook. And then we've got this session. And then if they just want to like peruse your website to just kind of learn more about you, what is that website?
It's resplendenthealing.com, RES. It's kind of a long name. Do you want me to spell it out?
I'll put it in the link, but
Okay.
resplendent, if you feel like you're a good speller, resplendent,
Resplendent.
it mostly has a lot of E's in it.
It has a lot of E's. Yeah,
Okay.
resplendent.com. Yeah, and then there's a opt-in link where you can click and I'll email you the download for the
Okay.
hacks.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Great.
there's a scheduling link. And also I have some resources. So if you want to find a homeopath in your area, you're looking for like a classical homeopath, you want to ask them if they've trained with Karen Allen using the Ramakrishna method is what it's called. And this is where we find the most success with fibroids and endometriosis. Constitutional remedy, of course, is awesome, but her method is what has really helped so many people. So I've listed a couple places. There's Council for Homeopathic Certification. There's the Homeopathic Academy of Naturopaths and American Institute of Homeopathy. So these are people who are trained in classical homeopathy who do
Okay.
these.
Great. So you do work by distance. You told me that
Yeah.
earlier. You do kind of a series, like a 6-month program
Mhm.
with
Exactly.
people. So you can do that virtually. But yeah, if you prefer to find someone in your own area, I posted all those resources too. So yeah, they're all posted now. And then I'll share all this to my group and we'll share it to YouTube and
That's fantastic.
yeah. Maybe we can fit it in on the newsletter one of these days as
Oh,
well. Because I,
that's fun. Yeah.
yeah, I just like to provide like new angles and new opportunities to people.
New
So,
angles. Yeah, different ways. I use homeopathy and I also use plant stem cells.
oh, that's what I wanted to ask you about.
I
Yeah,
know.
that. Let's our last couple minutes. What is a plant stem cell?
Plant stem cells are they're herbal tinctures made from the embryonic tissue of a plant, right? So regular herbs are made from the roots or the leaves. And then the plant stem cells are made from the root, like the little rootlets or the buds. And so all that genetic material in there is available. So they work on a very different level than herbs. They're stronger, but they're more gentle. You just take a few drops per day. They're sweet tasting. So I use those to reset the hormones. Like instead of taking like an estrogen cream or progesterone cream, you can take these and they're adaptogenic, right? So if you need more estrogen or progesterone during the month, it tells your body how to make more.
Oh,
And
I need those ones.
Eninas, they're
Really, I
amazing.
feel like I could put progesterone cream on all day long and it would not be enough. It's just like
Yeah.
never enough for me. So something is like, yeah, not clicking. That's really fascinating. What are those called? Those called plant stem cell therapy?
Plant stem cells, it's also known as gemotherapy, GE.
Oh, I have heard of that. Okay.
They were developed in the 50s in France. And
Okay.
um, they're going to become more and more popular. Hopefully, my mentor is writing a book right now, and he'll be doing seminars and teachings. And yeah, they're just amazing. I use them to help people sleep and for sinus infections and to help the thyroid. And there's just a whole art of using them
Oh.
that they're so vibrant and they work really, really well. So I use those instead of bioidentical hormones or anything like that. And the body just learns how to adapt itself using these. Which is
Wow, I definitely want to learn more about this. Okay,
yeah,
so that's like to be continued
to be
conversation.
continued.
I have to do that. And if you're called to work with Marnie, I keep wanting to call you Caroline. You must remind me of
And
someone
that's
you
so
know
funny.
named Caroline. If you're called to work with Marnie, she's set up 10 slots at a discounted price, which is really sweet. So you can get to know her and her work, and she does work virtually. So yeah, if you feel curious about it, you don't really have anything to lose to check it out and learn a little bit more about how it would apply to your case. And if it would, you said sometimes you say, oh, maybe you should try this or that too, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I always want to make sure it's a good fit for each person. I'm like, gosh, this person really needs acupuncture or they need a physical therapist or whatever. I like to refer out for what's going to best fit them. and I always want to make sure that I can work with somebody. Some cases, it's like, these things are going on, it's too complicated, or, oh, you really need this, so I want to be a good resource for people and, make sure I can help them and
Yeah.
that I've got the tools that are going to meet their needs. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you again for your time. And yeah, if anybody wants to follow up, we'll have the links below the video. Um, have a great evening, Marnie. Thanks for being
Great.
on.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening too. Bye-bye.